You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show. The preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. He sits right there. As soon as the opera lady says it, that makes it official, boys and girls. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. For 15 years, we've been bringing you the smartest people in the world. Not me, just everyone else. That's why we have guests on the show, people. The CEOs, the billionaires, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the White House advisors, you name it. Everybody has been on the show that's smart. Except for me, of course. I'm just some idiot with a mic that they put in here and prop me up for the seat. So anyway, guys, we have an amazing guest coming up. We're going to be talking about reinventing yourself, rebirth, how to change your life in so many different ways, as we do on the show. And this gentleman has done it not only from a career basis, but also from his own health, body, and good looks basis. In fact, it was kind of funny. We were joking before the show that he doesn't look like his LinkedIn profile, and I was like, wait, this isn't the same guy. So he needs to update his LinkedIn profile. As always, people, use that LinkedIn, because that leads me into the plugs and shaming. On LinkedIn, we have an amazing newsletter that grows like a weed. I don't know if that's a marketing term, but it just became one. So go subscribe to LinkedIn.com at LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Go to Goodreads.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1 over there on the Tickety Talkie. You can check out that as well. Today, we are joined by a gentleman who has reinvented himself in multiple ways with an inspiring story that if you don't leave inspired after this, you might want to listen to the podcast again, because you definitely tuned out and weren't paying attention. Edwin Schwartz joins us on the show today. He is a gentleman who talks about reinventing himself and his career midlife at 40. Holy crap. He said, I'm throwing it all out and I'm starting it over. So we're going to be discussing his stuff. After 15 years in a high-pressure sales environment, he literally quit his six-figure job at age 40. Now, he's been married for 20-plus years, and he has 2 twin daughters. And this is what this guy did. And he quit his six-figure job at age 40 to attend law school and never looked back. He talks about making big shifts in both career and fitness, as well as being a parent and being a good example your kids can follow, good or bad. And you only have one life, how to live it, and every second counts. I think we're going to be transformed, informed, and delighted and excited by Edwin being on the show today. Did I just start rapping there? I don't know. Welcome to the show, Edwin. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you as well. I just turned into excited, delighted. Did I just make a new theme for the show? So give us a .com so we can find you on the interwebs, please.
The best place to find me is probably going to be on LinkedIn at Edwin Schwartz. That's EDWIN. SCHWARTZ, or the gram, or Insta as kids call it, Ed Schwartz 87, Ed Schwartz 87.
The gram, as the kids call it. Wow, this dude's hopping. He's hot. He knows the lingo of the kids. Of course, you have 2 twin daughters, correct?
Yes, I do.
So you got to know what the gram is, because there's some wild stuff going on over there. Make sure those girls are minding themselves. I know that there's a lot of girls putting themselves out on the gram, and I've got some friends that have daughters that they constantly have to talk to about the gram and go, okay, honey, some of this stuff that's not real life over here. Like, they have people paying to, I think it's in LA too. They have people paying money where you can go sit in a fake set where you look like you're in a jet tube. And and then you have photos taken of you, and you can put them on the gram, and it makes everyone think that you're, living the high life, the Kardashian life. So there you go. So Edwin, give us a 30,000 overview of who you are and what you do currently.
Sure. I'm an attorney based out of Costa Mesa, California. I used to be in the car business for quite a long time before making the switch to do that. As an attorney, I defend landlords and do civil litigation, trial work. It's what I do is probably going to put your audience to sleep, but the fact that I do it has been a great thing. I love what I do and what I was doing beforehand. I was making good money at it, but it was never really my thing. And I just knew I needed to get out as soon as my kids were born. And so I made the switch, and I'm glad that I did.
There you go. Now, you've done a few things in life. You've overcome issues with alcohol. We're going to get into that. So kind of a bit of a redemption story. And did you make this switch at 40 when your daughters came along? Was that the proponent?
Primarily, yeah. Like I said, I'd been in the car business for a long time. I was a sales manager at the time at a BMW store, and then switched over to Lexus. Those were the two brands that I sold for. I could look at my colleagues, with all due respect to them, many of whom I care about very much, but I just saw lots of divorce, and I saw lots of nights and weekends, and I never seeing their kids grow up. And my wife and I went through a lot to be able to have our children. We did surrogacy. Maybe that's topic for another day, but like I wanted to be a dad very badly, and I just knew I was going to miss them growing up if I stayed in the job that I had. So I needed to make a switch.
So tell us about your upbringing, because you've done a little bit of reinvention time as you've gone. What was your upbringing like, and some of the journey? Let's talk about getting sober, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So I grew up in Palm Springs, California. My dad was a lawyer. It's probably one of the reasons why I stayed away from it for so long. My brother-in-law, my ex-brother, I got a lot of lawyers in the family, which is
you avoided the family thing there for a while.
Well, you know what? With all due respect to them, nobody ever seemed that happy. And so I just assumed that being a lawyer meant not being happy. And it wasn't until I got older and some of my friends that I grew up with who loved being lawyers, shout out to Carl Schlecht, inspired me that maybe it was just them and not the profession that was making them unhappy. But yeah, I grew up in Palm Springs. It was a very nice growing up. I was adopted. I don't remember the age that I was when I was brought home.
Oh, wow.
So my adopted parents have always been my parents, but I grew up, kind of privileged in a country club, and things came easy for me in school. My parents owned a liquor store, which supplied a lot of my addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I went off to college and quickly screwed that up very, very quickly.
So it sounds like you grew up and maybe a little bit of privilege going on there, and kind of maybe some rebellion against the parental society, and a bit rebellionous, maybe.
I think as much as I could be, yeah. It was one of those things where I got my work done. I got great grades. I was able to participate in sports. I had a lot of friends, but I could party, and I loved partying, and I did it. And quite frankly, until it stopped working. Once I got to college, it stopped working very quickly. So here we are.
There you go. So were you? Let me ask you this: were you addicted to drinking and had to totally, quit and go to AA for all your life, or were you just abusing it?
Great question. So, when you're 19 years old, it's kind of hard to really know. I was able to look at some different points in my life, my brief 7-year drinking period. Like I started drinking when I was 12. Well, my first story my parents tell me is before I can even remember, they had parties in the 70s with martinis, and I would go around the tables where people would leave their glass down and I would just drink the martinis.
Wow. Now, how old were you at this age?
I think I was probably 4 or 5. I don't remember it, but my mom tells the story all the time.
Now, what kind of parents are these? No, I'm just teasing.
We grew up, what can I tell you?
Was it the 70s, I guess? Yeah,
70s, at that age it was, and then we got into the 80s, and you remember, like we're about the same age.
Yeah, I just went to cocaine in the 80s, pretty much.
Yes,
there you go.
And that was, and really the cocaine is what brought me down quickly. Very, very quickly. So
wow,
yeah.
And did you have a chip on your shoulder? Or did you have a true rebellion against your parents being attorneys? You're like, I'm not doing what those people did. My parents did. And let me ask you this, if you don't mind. When children are adopted, sometimes they have this feeling that they were rejected, or they have this kind of thing that haunts over them, or they have a thing like, why didn't my parents love me? Why weren't they into me? Why did they reject me? Where are they? I'd like to maybe reconcile with them. Was that any of that going on in your head? Was that any of the sort of things that were maybe contributing to your issues, or did that bother you at all?
I mean, when I was younger, I think subconsciously that was there for sure. Issues of abandonment. Why did they give me up? I found out 5 or 6 years ago what the real story was.
Oh
I
wow.
was adopted through the LA County Adoption Agency. My parents were told a particular story that I grew up with. Their birth parents they hooked up too young and they were just too young to have kids. And so they wanted you to go to a nice family. And so I did. I went to a very nice family. I'm super grateful for everything my parents did. I wasn't outwardly rebellious toward my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate them. I love them tremendously.
Yeah.
My dad has passed away. My mom is 95. She lives 10 minutes from us. I see her twice a week. So all of that was good, but I always had this deep-seated belief of I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I had issues of abandonment and rejection for sure. I think even still to this day, sometimes that comes creeping back up. And I knew that drinking filled a hole somewhere in my soul for that. And frankly, I was able to do it for a while and not suffer any negative adverse consequences. So I was like a happy drunk and had a good time doing it. But you asked earlier, like, how did you know? And I remember one summer, so we grew up in Palm Springs. It's hot AF out there, right? And so in the summertime, we'd go out to Oceanside, California, right on the beach. And I was at a bonfire one night. I was, I think, 12 and got hammered, drank a lot, smoked a lot of weed. I'd come home and go straight to my room, fall asleep. The next morning, I had a horrible hangover. But my parents sat me down and they're like, hey, we know you look a little older.
I think we lost you there, Edwin, a little bit. We'll get Edwin back here. There he is. Got you back.
Right. The best part. Now you're gonna have to.
You left us in limbo there, suspense.
Sorry, that's the best way to do a story, right?
Yeah.
But they sat me down and they said, "Hey, look, if you want to have a beer or two when you are hanging out with these older kids, that's fine." And I remember looking them straight in the eye and saying, "I'm not drinking to fit in. I love getting drunk." Now, at the time, that didn't register. Hey, maybe that's a sign of a problem drinker. But when I looked back, right, I went to USC, as I mentioned earlier. I got suspended for a year. I got in trouble for engaging in a business opportunity. I was selling, I sold drugs out of my dorm room is essentially what happened.
Business opportunity.
Then I stopped, but my associate kept doing it, and we both got busted together. That's really the quick story. So although I had stopped, whatever, I ended up paying a price for it. I got suspended for a year, but they said, hey, you got to go to rehab. I was like, rehab? I don't have a problem. I don't have to go to rehab. But I did for outpatient for a whole year. And after about 8 or 9 months of not drinking and not smoking and not doing blow, etc., I had some clarity. And the clarity is critical. I was like, things have gotten so much better. Why would I give this up? I was in Los Angeles at the time when I got sober, my first several years. You mentioned AA. I went to a lot of AA meetings. I loved cocaine, so I also went to Cocaine Anonymous meetings. For probably the first 10 years or so, I went to a lot of meetings. And then, I don't want to say you get better because I don't believe in that. I believe once you're an addict, you're kind of always an addict and alcoholic, but life goes on. You learn how to cope. I could be around people that are drinking and partying. And I was at a concert 2 weeks ago. I had kind of a metalhead show, Avenged Sevenfold, although they did cancel that show because the guy got sick, but whatever.
Oh, man.
And I can be around it and it's not a problem. Right. But it took a while to get there. And then once you establish some time, you don't want to F that up.
Yeah.
Like, well, what if I could handle a drink? Okay, let's suppose for a moment I could handle a drink right now. Well, what do I gain? I mean, I guess I gain the ability to find out. But if I'm wrong, I just blew 35 years. I'm not fucking that up.
I had a girlfriend who I drank heavily for 20 years, but for me it was a fuel. I was running 3 multiple companies. We started over 27 companies over time. over my lifetime. I think it's more than that. That was up until 2008. And for me, it was a fuel. Like, I needed to stay up later to work and try and do stuff. And I was living this crazy life of 3 different companies in 3 different states, and traveling all over the place, multiple houses, multiple cars. I had a BMW parked at a given airport at any given time. My BMW short-term parking for one of my BMWs was usually most people's mortgage. And it was an insane life. And of course, one of my main I would work in Utah and live in Vegas, especially during the weekends. And the partying I did was quite extensive. And I don't gamble. So I lived this crazy, insane life, and alcohol was a fuel. Now, I never had a problem. I didn't get the shakes if I ran out of vodka or anything. I'd just be like, I'll get some tomorrow or the next day. I'm a lazy drunk. But for me, it was a fuel. It was like sugar. So my friends they were addicts to, some sort of thing. They get the Joneses and the shakes and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm fine then. I knew I was abusing myself with it, but I was abusing myself. So it was abuse. And God, I feel so much better not drinking. I gave it up, 2020, 2021. I kind of had to. My body was just like, fuck you, we're not doing this with you anymore. We're just not doing it. You want to drink for a few hours? Hey, we're going to make you dehydrated for 3 days and bloated, and we're just going to fuck you up. And finally, the math just came home where you're just like, this isn't worth the hangovers, and you get to a point at 50 where you're like, you have 2 beers and you got a hangover and you're like, what the fuck? And I'd started listening to my body. Of course, I lost weight and started eating well, and started really hearing what my body was telling me. But I'm glad you went through this transition. Oh, what I prefaced that with in my segue, I got too many segues going on there, was there was a time in my life where I dated a wonderful young lady who had alcoholism problem. And it was part of it came from her father, sadly. But she had a real problem. When she would drink, her physiology would change. And it ended up killing her in the end. But I tried doing the right thing as a man and going to AA with her. And I went twice. And the stories I heard at AA are what changed my mind, and maybe had to decide that this isn't going to be my life, and it has to be her life. But it's not my journey. And during that, I would see these guys, and I'd go in and I'd listen to AA because I was trying to support her in her AA. And these guys would talk about how they were living under a viaduct. They lost everything. They're down on Skid Row in LA. And then they quit drinking. They get their shit together. They get a job. They get a wife. They get kids. They're doing the right thing as a man, being a provider and protector. And then just one day, they pick up a drink, and 2 weeks, a month disappear, and they're back under the viaduct after 20 years of building themselves. So, and sometimes that was like multiple stories. Like they went round 2 or 3 times, and now they were back on the thing. And I just sat there in AA going, Mother of God, God bless these people, and God bless that they're doing this, but this is some hard shit. And the fact that you can just maybe go in one day, pick up a drink, and you're like, I'll have a drink. And then, I had friends that they would, if they went back to the booze, if they picked up a drink, they'd have 2 to 3 weeks disappear, and they wake up half naked in some bar in fucking Mexico. And they're like, how the hell did I get here from Utah? I should probably write some stories about that in my book. So yeah, God bless you. But you know what? You're so much more healthier for it because of it. It's such a toxin, actually, for your body.
Yeah, it's like I said, after a certain amount of clarity, like you experienced, right? You stopped doing it. You started taking care of yourself. Once you start doing that, whether you have an addictive personality or not, you want to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
and then when you do occasionally mess up and ingest some bad stuff, whatever that is, your body does not reward you.
Right? Not at our age anymore.
Why
our body's like Taco Bell. Enjoy some sewer pain there. You're gonna have fun. So at what point you've been married for how many years now?
23.
23 years. And at what did your marry your wife come in as a proponent for shaping your life up a little bit?
I mean, when I met her, I had been sober for a while, and
There you go.
on our very first date, we go to a restaurant in Del Mar, California, and I'm thinking, I got to get her a glass of wine or something, right? It's a
Yeah.
social lubricant. I want to make out with her after this dinner's over. So I'm like, hey, here's the wine list. What would you like? And she said, what are you gonna have? Well, I'm not gonna have anything. I don't drink. And she's like, really? That's so interesting. I get sick when I drink. I won't have a drink tonight either. And I was like,
She
are
gets
you
sick when she
sure?
drinks?
Are you
Really?
sure?
Wow.
Yeah. And so really, since unless she's been sneaking it, and I don't think that's not who she is, but our first date in October of 1996. I don't remember the specific date, but I think I should get some credit for the month and the year. A lot of guys wouldn't remember that, but that was
That's
our
true.
first. Ever since then, she has not had a drink, and so it's been an interesting contrast, right? Because here's somebody who we would call in AA a normie, a normal person, who just decides, yeah, I don't want that stuff. It makes me sick. I don't need it. The guy I support, he doesn't do it, and here we are, 28 years later since I first met her.
Congratulations, bro.
Thank
That's the thing that's weird about me where I date still at 35 or 35 years I've been dating. And at 55, I meet people and they do that. We do that conversation over dinner. Do you drink? No. Oh, you have a problem? No. No, I don't have a problem. I just I just don't. It just feels, if I want a great hangover tomorrow, I'll drink, sure. And then I'll be sitting there and waking up with, my eyes all bloody and my brain beaten and my body's like, fuck you. And then I'll get on the scale and there's 3 pounds of water and, the bloating I really started feeling the bloating. Like if I drink, I will put on water. My body overcompensates and I'll put on like 3 or 4 pounds of water and you'll feel it too. You're like, oh my God, did it put it all into my cells? You know? And then you just drag. Like I started feeling the drag from being dehydrated and your body's trying to clean it out of your system and stuff and I just would feel it in my body for when you eat stuff, it takes time to process through your body. And so when you drink, it takes time for your body to handle all that shit. And so I just started feeling it and I'm like, you know what? I really like waking up every day and doing my podcast and being on the money and having energy and I just like how I feel. And I mean you're 20, you can rebound through it and stuff, but I even though at 55 though, I got to tell you I can feel all the drinks I took and all the Las Vegas partying I did some days. So take care of yourself, people. That's the message. So at some point you have your two daughters, your twins, and I think those are the kids that you have, right? Two daughters, they're twins, because that's enough right there with twins.
Correct. And quite frankly, we felt, first of all, like I said at the start of the podcast, it took a while to get them right through surrogacy. And then we also didn't want to be outnumbered, got two parents, two kids. It's plenty. Like we're not increasing the population net wise, right? We're not decreasing it, but we can
It's a
manage
net
that.
net.
And they're expensive. I mean, I live in
Yeah.
Southern California, for God's sakes. And my kids go to Starbucks and they wear Lululemon and
You're
they're,
screwed.
holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what age were you when you had the two daughters?
37, I think.
Damn, dude. That's something else. I had a friend about 35, 33. He had his first kids because, we used to party. And he finally got around to having his first kids, and he had twin boys.
Mm.
And I visited him for a week one time when I traveled, and I would see the diaper thing that he would hold up from a day.
Diaper Genie.
Yeah, and he's like, Chris, I know why people have quit kids when they're in their 20s, man. He goes at 30, man, trying to do this, and then with twins, and I'm like, yeah, dude, whatever. So twins are hard. They're that's a challenge, Most parents, they just get one at a time, and then they kind of get through that first gauntlet. And but he's like, yeah, we get the one asleep, and then the other one wakes up and starts crying, and wakes the other one up, and it's like a tag team, like all day long. So that's quite the journey you went on. So
It-
at what point of having your daughters do we hit the mark at 40 where you go, hey, I'm going to just totally throw my career out that I built, and I'm going to go to college? And what's it like? What does the wife say at that point? Is she like on board, or is she like, what is this guy doing?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, she also comes from a long line of lawyers, right? Her
Ah,
dad, her brother, her uncle, her cousins. We're Jewish. Like, there's just a bunch of lawyers in the family. What
she
can I tell you?
she's like if this guy screws it up, I know some divorce lawyers that can go.
Right.
Yeah, I got
So,
this.
when I was pushing into 30, right, 10 years earlier,
Mhm.
um, the car business was a good business for me. I'll
Yeah.
say that. But nobody graduates high school or graduates college thinking I'm going to be in a car business unless their dad owns a car dealership, which oddly enough is not my case. Although Chris, I found out when I sang it, I found out my real birth story. Apparently the birth father, whose name I guess for the protection of his family will go unnamed at the moment, but owned a dealership up in Santa Barbara.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, shit you not.
Did you
So I
know
guess
that
it was
when
in
you
my
were young?
blood. What's that?
Did you know that when you were young?
No, through the magic of ancestry.com, we were able to piece that shit together, right?
Wow.
DNA, you put it into the system, they can find serial killers, and they found my birth father. So
Well, I mean, at least they didn't find I was a serial killer, because that's
right,
no fun usually.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But anyway, so I thought about going back to law school when I was coming up on 30, but then I thought, my God, that's a lot of school. And then I'll be in my early 30s as a new lawyer. Everybody I know is 10 years younger. That's like, who's going to hire me? And that's so old. And then, dude, 10 years
Yeah,
goes by like that.
so how long had you gone to college? Because I know, like, one of the things that holds me back from going to get a law degree right now, because I go get one. In fact, I always tell people if I could go back to being 20, even though I started my first company at 18, I would go get a law degree, because it's such a great thing, and I really love the aspect of the law. But also, it's so versatile. I mean, you can use it for so many different things. You can go be a politician if you want. You can, advise big corporations. You can. I probably would have been a divorce attorney, because, man, what a great business that's become, especially when they legalized gay marriage. When our gay marriage was being legalized, I'm like, damn it, I should have been a divorce attorney, because they just doubled their business right there.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, and the aspect of law is so cool to me. You learn that when you make money and you hit a certain level of I don't want to call it rich, but when you make a certain level of money, you learn that rich people do war like they used to do in medieval times, but they do it through the courts. And so shakedown lawsuits, all sorts of crap. Everyone sues you because you're rich. Um, why did you sue me? Because you have money. Oh, okay. Thanks. Great. Your employees pull shit with you. I had a sales organization too, so salespeople love to fight over money and commissions and play. You always have some guy who's he's the guy who's he's the problem drinker who drinks the Crown Royal. It's always that guy. If you ever meet him, and it's just I had these sales guys that were great. I mean, you were in the car business for all these years. You know those guys, the sales guys who are doing blow and cocaine off hookers and calling you from the road, or you have to go bail them out of jail, or you have to go pick them up at the bar. And these guys, you're making 20 to 40 grand off a month, and you gotta go cover their ass. But they're the greatest salesmen in the world. But so I feel you in what goes on there, and yeah, I mean, even at this age, I would go back and do it. But I preface this before I segued that there's a lot of segue going on this show. Did you have to go to full college, or had you done some college and you just had to go back and get the law part done?
A great question. So when I graduated high school, I went straight to college, and so even though I got suspended for a year, I still did my time, so to speak, at community college, Santa Monica City College, which was believe it or not, was an outstanding school. I'm having an opportunity to compare it to USC, which USC at the time was a lot easier to get in, by the way. But so I had already had an undergraduate degree, and so I just had to go to law school. But it's not just going to law school. It's a lot of work, man. I was
yeah, it is. It's not easy.
I did a part-time program through a school down here in San Diego called California Western. It was probably 3 or 4 units shy of a full-time. So even though it was part-time, it was a lot, man.
Yeah.
And so
and you're raising 2, teenage, or 2, well, they weren't teenage at the time, but 2 twins daughters.
Right. I mean, the first year and a half of law school, I would say I was 7 days a week. I was either in school, at work, or in school and then at work. I mean, for a year and a half straight. And then finally I realized, I think I'm going to like this lawyer thing. I'm going to take some time off from work. I enjoy just being a student before I got to pop out and start grinding again after I get out of school. But so I had the degree and then had the undergraduate degree and then went and got the law school degree. But it was really driven primarily by my desire. People laugh when they say this because lawyers work a lot of hours, but like I wanted to spend more time with my kids. Yeah. My dad always took, you can't see it off camera, but like I got law books over here. I got case files over there. There's my law degree in the background somewhere over there. You can do it at home. You're in the car business, man. You can't, I can't sell a car from my house and get the full deal. Like you have to be at the dealership. I can't be a manager or a finance guy or an internet guy from my house in the car business. You have to be there. Sure. And so the law gave me an opportunity to do that from home and not necessarily work my own hours, but more have control over when I'm able to work those hours. And quite frankly, I was selling BMWs and I was selling Lexus, and who buys that shit? Guys like you, right? Like you just said, you had a bunch of cars at every airport or whatever.
BMWs, yeah.
And so I was able to see everybody's finances, even though somebody comes in and wants to buy a car, say for cash, we don't just give it to them and hope that they're being truthful. Like we run a credit report and we look at their bank statements and we find out what they do. And so I could see who was making the most money on a consistent basis. And I got to tell you, lawyers do fairly well. And so I thought, all right, they're going to make good money. And the other thing I noticed in sales, maybe you experienced this with the people that used to work for you. I don't know. They prize youth and energy in most businesses, but in law, they still want some energy, but the youth part is not prized. I mean, it's the opposite. The longer you're an attorney, the more valuable, the more experience that you have. So I knew 2 things. One, I'm not smart enough, unfortunately, to be able to figure out how to get rich fast and retire and never work again. I'm going to be grinding it out until I'm probably in my 80s. That's just the way it's going to be. So what job can I do that will allow me to continue to do that and be valuable as I do that? Being a lawyer, right? I mean, that was it.
And your wife probably stuck with you because she's like, I know how much money lawyers make because I'm from a family of lawyers, and I'll stick it out with this guy. He's probably got some potential.
It's funny because she's like, you're going to go to law school and you're going to meet some hot young lawyer lady and then leave. And then I thought, you're going to get tired of me always being at the library. I'm at the library, but is he really at the library? I mean, he says he's studying. I don't know. But we were able to get through that, and our kids were young. Like she was working full time. And so we were able to make that work. One of the messages and what I wanted to talk about, in addition to making the big changes, you got to have a support system. It's ideal if you have some sort of support system. You don't have to, but it worked for me. I had have a wife, a spouse who was very supportive and allowed me to go do what I had to do. I did not get those calls like, hey, it's 11:30 and you're still at the library. Where are you? It was just like, all right, come home when you come home. And, there was a lot of trust there, and it would have been a lot more difficult to do that if that wasn't there. So I'm very grateful. I'm very lucky that way, but you got to have a good support system, and you got to make the decision. Like, look, I knew that I wanted to get to this goal, which was my arms off your camera. It's that far away, right? This far out there goal. I didn't know if I was going to get in. I didn't want to take the law school test. It's like a 3 or 4 hour test, the LSAT, law school admission test. I didn't know if I'd get in. I didn't know if I'd survive my first semester, right? I mean, I could do all of this and tell everybody I'm going to law school and then get cut after the first semester. I mean, I didn't know. And then even if you get your degree, like you talked about getting the degree, that doesn't mean shit really for most people if you don't have a license to practice law. So you got to pass the bar. I can
Yeah.
take it's California, man. That test is fucking hard.
Yeah, I mean,
Hard.
it took Kim Kardashian what, like 7 times or something?
I don't know.
To her law.
I know a few people that has taken more than once, and I didn't want to be that guy. My dad passed the first time. My brother passed the first time. My brother-in-law passed the first time. I was not going to be the guy that didn't pass the first time. But my point is, you take the best next step. What is the next? I gotta take that fucking LSAT test, and if I don't get good enough score on that, then it doesn't matter because I'm not going to get in school. And then I passed, or I got a particular score. It wasn't great, but it was good enough to get in. Then you got to show up. And then you got to get through, that first semester. And it's not like you got midterms, like at my school anyway. Everything rides on your final exam. So you write this giant tuition check, which was really a student loan that I'm going to be paying for forever. And then
you got the student loan.
Yeah. Oh, they're gigantic. But that's what I needed to do it. I mean, that's that's on me, man. But
well, I mean, you're 40. I mean, you're 40 when you go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're paying for kids and house and mortgage and all that sort of stuff. Being married,
mm-hmm.
and I mean that's expensive. But I mean, you're still. I mean, the challenge of you taking on the challenge of reinventing your whole life midstream, if you would, for most men. Then props to you, man. I mean, you're. I'm sure you're on the better side. Where you're living a better life overall, and yeah, I mean, you're paying a price for it. But attorneys make good money, so there you go. Just sue the hell out of more people.
We actually do a lot of defense. If it wasn't for the guys filing the lawsuit,
more people, then
we wouldn't have the opportunity to defend. But it's interesting. So we got my wife a new car a few weeks ago, right? And so I'm back at this dealership that I used to work at. And I'm seeing some people that I used to work with who, are dear to me and I care about them.
Yeah.
But I had this feeling of, I escaped. I got out of there, man. It was such a good feeling. And then last night, I've been a lawyer now for over 10 years, right? I've been doing, law school. I started in 2010. And I never really had dreams or nightmares really about being a lawyer. But I've always had this dream, this nightmare that haunts me where it's like the middle of the month. I got 2.5 cars out. I got like $700 made. I got to get to 10 grand for the month to be able to pay my bills. Oh my God, I'm going to get fired. What's happening? I had it again last night and I haven't sold cars in a very long time, man. But there's this perpetual fear of having to hit your monthly targets. It's such an interesting thing.
Yeah, you got to make your sales goals, otherwise they cut you, right. Man.
And hey, everything is sales, right? I mean, wouldn't you agree? Even though I'm a lawyer, you say, well, okay, you don't have to sell anymore. That's not true. I got monthly billable hours. We got to generate clients. The clients got to pay. Like sales is everything. Between having a law degree, because law covers everything, and having a sales background, it's a great combination. I highly recommend it for people, even if they don't become salespeople or lawyers.
That's the one challenge lawyers have is they don't teach them the business part of it. They didn't used to teach them the business part of it. Some of the lawyers we've on said they're working on it now in law school, but they don't teach them the business part of it. And I remember when I was dealing with my attorneys back in the day, that was back in the Yellow Pages day. And if you didn't own that back Yellow Pages thing, man, the back cover of the Yellow Pages. And I talked to them like when new marketing was starting to come in, like social media. They're like, yeah, we're not really allowed to ambulance chase. Like, marketing for us is like ambulance chasing. And I'm like, well, how the hell do you guys, you got to go get the business. How do you guys do it? And I think a lot of things have changed now with the rules and regulations for attorneys to be able to market and advertise and ambulance chase, if you will. But it's a challenge. And you're always selling. That's what people don't get in life. I meet people and they're like, I don't like sales. And I'm like, you convince your girlfriend or wife to stay with you every day and maybe convince them to, feed you and nurture you. That's selling. We sell ourselves to people on dates. We sell ourselves to the world, the cars we drive, the things we, the whole Fight Club line, the cars we drive, the things we buy, the clothes we wear. We're constantly selling who we are. And people don't realize it. It's like you're selling, if you're a young girl who wants attention and validation, you're putting yourself on a dating app or posting on Instagram, you're selling. Everyone's selling. And so it's funny people don't get that, hey, sales is life, technically, really, when it comes down to it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, so you go through this, you become a successful attorney. What sort of area do you cover now? You said you defend people in law.
Yeah, I mean, I do civil litigation or trial work, although really not a lot of cases go to trial these days. A lot of things tend to settle. But I defend landlords from their tenants when their tenants sue them. We do commercial and residential. We do business litigation. Defend employers when their employees sue them. You know, that's what we do.
Yeah, I've seen
Sexy stuff, movies. Man.
The sexy stuff. I've seen those. Like, the favorite thing of our salespeople in our mortgage business back in the day was they would write a bunch of business, but usually the average was 50% of it would actually close. The rest of it would fall apart because in the mortgage business, you've got maybe there's a title problem from a divorce decree, or maybe their credit turns out to be crap, or something comes up, some lien on the property, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a million ways to kill a mortgage deal, but they notoriously, if we had some sort of blowout where they would quit or get fired, sometimes someone would offer them more money and they'd leave. They would notoriously sue us for 100% of their book that they'd written, and whatever was open, and shake us down. It was shakedown lawsuits, and I would be like, "Are you serious? Like, that 50% of this business it won't close. That." I mean, Jesus, if they'd written an application, just fill out the name and phone number, and they hadn't acquired all the documents, they would still put that in the bag. I mean, it was shakedown stuff. I mean, I just learned when you get money in life, people shake you the fuck down. And I actually had somebody say that to me. I go, "Why did you pull this off of me? Because you're rich." I'm like, "Are you fucking serious? Are you serious as hell?" So fortunately, I met some evil attorneys over the years, and that changed the game for me. But and now I can do that stuff without having a law degree. But yeah, so do you have any thoughts on that Airbnb chick that's stuck in that house in, I think it's in L.A.? Have you heard that story?
I have not, but if it's in Los Angeles, I feel bad for whoever owns the property, because that's where all my cases are venued. And Los Angeles is a tenant's dream, and a landlord's absolute nightmare.
There you go. You'll have to Google it after the show, or else I have to send you a link. But there's a chick, and this is her second time, but evidently she finally found the right victim. But she's been squatting in two Airbnbs, and the first one they finally got her out. The second one, I think she's in L.A., and the L.A. rules are working for her. And she's been in there for over a year, and she's actually demanding the guy pays her $100,000 shakedown fee to get the hell out of her. To get the hell out, and he won't pay it. But then there's some BS code where they've cited him for failing as a landlord, and she gets free rent because, I don't know, he didn't get the bathroom freaking papered right, or whatever the hell it is. You're laughing, the rules in LA. Yeah, I'll have to you have to read it. It's extraordinary. But yeah, it's been all over the news, and she's like a total squatter living in this mansion. It's like expensive as hell. So you help people do that. At what point do you reinvent your health, because you look kind of doughy a little bit? I'll be honest, in your LinkedIn thing, you look a little bit healthy, a little doughy. But at what point do you start working on your health and your body? And for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying, I've got a picture of him on Podmatch where he's look all svelte, and he's got the cut six-pack and the arms and the chest. I mean, the ladies, you probably walk down the street and ladies throw stuff at you.
I do get hit on, with all due respect to my wife, who I love very much. It's much better to be fit than it is to not be fit. I can just tell you that.
She can leave you anytime soon.
I was in the throes of COVID, right? So it's the end of 2020. We're all at home. The gyms are all closed. But before that, let me just say, I've always been genetically, I'm lucky. I've always been thin. I mean, I'm 6'2". I've never weighed more than 197 pounds, which is the absolute heaviest I've ever been. I'm at 190 right now. Mm-hmm. But I had probably 19% body fat at the time, as you said, right? Kind of doughy. So I was skinny fat. I would go to the gym for a few weeks, and then I'd either get get a cold or, something gets sore. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop going. And so I paid for years to LA Fitness for a membership that I just did not use, but I didn't want to cancel it because that meant quitting. Yeah. And I'm not a quitter, and I'm going to go one of these days. But so now we're in towards the end of 2020, it's COVID. And I was on TikTok and I'm scrolling through and I see this guy named Clark Bartram, who's now my good friend of mine. He's my fitness coach. He lives 20 minutes away from me. And he's got this thing called 3 moves, 3 minutes. Like, hey, just do, 1 move for 1 minute. You do 3 moves in 3 minutes. I'm
now,
like,
for most married guys, this is their sex life. I had to get that joke in there. I had to get that joke in there.
Like 1 move, 45 seconds, I think.
Oh yeah. Married
so
life. This is why I'm still single. I have 55, folks. Anyway, married jokes aside.
But so there were 2 things that happened specifically. One was, and this is what sort of led me to find Clark on TikTok. I was going to put my underwear on one day, not to be graphic, but you got to lean forward and lift your leg up to slide your leg into the hole there. And I threw my back out. Like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And then the second thing was one of my daughters, we talked about that earlier, my twin daughters, they are athletes. One's a volleyballer, one plays softball. I was always pushing them to do more, be more, lift more, etc. She was probably 10 at the time. She went to put her hand around my bicep, and not like, hey, let's see how big Dad's bicep, but it was like, oh my God, I can almost get my hand around your entire bicep, Dad. Yeah.
I feel like guilt and shaming will do it to you.
Oh man,
I've had some
brutal.
I've had some pseudo. I had a pseudo stepdaughter one time when I was engaged, and she came in at 3 one time while I was dressing for to go to work, and I had a really nice suit on. I had all my suits custom made, and she comes in one day, and she actually started doing it. It became a thing. But she comes in one day and she looks at me and she goes, "You gonna wear that tie with that suit?" Like, you gotta love women. And I looked at her. I'm like, "What do you know? You're freaking 3. Get out of here." And she's like, "Okay, all right, yeah." She'd do that whenever I didn't match up. She's going, "You sure you're gonna wear that with that?" And I'm like, man, they start young, man. 3 years old, and they're guilt and shaming and negotiating their stuff there.
It doesn't stop, and they get better each year.
They have a way of hoodwinking you. I mean, your daughters are what, 11? No, you said?
No, now they're 16. They're going to be
16
in a couple of weeks. They're 11th grade. They're in 11th grade. Yeah,
you're completely screwed. Oh, 11th grade. There you go. Yeah, you're screwed. You're so screwed.
Right.
But hang in there, buddy. It gets better, evidently. But I think you have to. I think the teens, the dating whole thing is. I don't know how I'd ever handle that as a man. But
it's something I try not to think about. So that's you stick your head in the sand. That's one way to do it. I think about what I was like at that age, and I was talking to my wife about this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, look, they're straight A students, they're athletes, they're great kids. Yeah, they're on their phones a lot. Every kid is these days. Yeah, their room's not as clean as we would like it to be, but you know what? They're good kids, and I got to tell you, they haven't done any of the shit that I did by the time I was their age. So I figure, and I did that stuff with girls, right? Yeah. And so I figured it's a win, man. I'm ahead of the game. I've survived middle school, the first couple of years of high school, and all the trauma and drama that can bring my kids. I give them a lot of rope, so to speak, to see if they're going to hang themselves with it. And they're great kids. So I'm very lucky that way. But back to what we were talking about, like my daughter with her hand around my bicep, and I decided, all right, I'm going to do these 3 moves, 3 minutes. I'm going to start working out in my gym, in my garage. I had some weights. If you remember right when COVID happened, the gyms got shut down.
Yeah.
Everybody sold out of weights. Like Rogue didn't have any weights. You couldn't get it at what Sports Authority, I think, was still in business. Dick's didn't have any weights. So I had a weight set, and I started doing stuff. And within about 4 weeks of doing some moderate exercise and some walking, nothing even really crazy, man, I started to see some definition. Oh. And my fitness coach had this 6-week challenge that he was doing. And I'm like, I'm going to enter the challenge, see how I do. I didn't win the challenge, but my body got a lot better. And I just stayed with it. And I've seen guys like you lose 100 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. Through this process. I've seen myself, my body composition totally change. But the biggest thing is, like, I'm sitting in a chair right now. You're sitting in a chair right now. We do this for most of the day. Like, if you don't get up and move, man, that's going to be problematic at our age. So I needed to move for the energy. I wanted to work out. Looking good is definitely a side benefit. I mean, there's no question. I got a great set of abs. I'm in great shape, but man, I got good energy. I feel the confidence level that you get when you start working out and you just feel better about how you feel and look. It's hard to describe until you've actually gone through it. And it's kind of hard to put a price tag on it, frankly.
There you go. Well, the only reason I don't get up on the podcast is because when I do the podcast, I'm naked from the waist down. Oi!
Nice.
I had to get that joke in there. I'm not really naked, people. Stop it. Don't write me. Don't.
I was gonna have shorts on earlier.
Snapchat
I'm like,
me,
no,
ladies.
if I stand up on this podcast, I better put some pants
That's
on.
actually a rule on this podcast. Everyone has to show up naked from the waist down. You ever seen those like newscasters now, and they have like the suit on, and they're sitting in their little newscaster spot booth, and they're in like shorts and flip flops, and you're just like, I never thought Al Roker was doing that. But let me ask you this, because did you go through, was part of this some of the catharsis that many people went through during COVID, where they started to really reanalyze their life choices? That's what I did. I went through a cathartic thing where going, hey, this can all disappear tomorrow. Maybe I should make some better choices. Maybe I should love the people around me. Maybe I should love myself a little bit better. Because that was one thing that went through my head. I was like, geez, if I get COVID, I'm really overweight. I haven't been to the gym. This stuff could get me. You know, you kind of didn't know how COVID was going to hit you if you got it. Did you go through any of that?
Not to sound shallow, but no.
It's like, I'm just going to jack so that.
Here's what I did go through, though. So COVID created a tremendous amount of work for me as a landlord defending attorney, as you can imagine. So I was buried in work. So I didn't really have time to think long term. But I knew, back to my kids, right? Because they're an inspiration for so much of what I've done and the changes that I made. I knew that I wanted to be the example that I was trying to set for them. I couldn't tell them to go work out and go for a run if I wasn't working out and going for a run. I just didn't feel that I had the place to do that. I go to a lot of sporting events, and you see a lot of parents that are not in the best shape, and love to all my friends out there that I see at the softball fields and the volleyball tournaments. But man, if you're asking your kids to work out 3 or 4 times a week and to eat and eat protein, take creatine, et cetera, and you're not doing it, I mean, what are you doing? Set the example. My daughter the other day, sit right over here. She's doing her homework. She's got AP classes, advanced placement classes. And so she's school all day. Then she goes to practice for 2 or 3 hours. Then she comes home and does homework. And it's like 10 o'clock at night and she's doing homework. And I thought, sometimes I'm sitting on the couch watching television like our parents did. But then I think, maybe I should sit down next to her and do some of my work. Like, we're in this together. Set the example of what you're trying to get them to do, and that more than anything is what prompted that change for me, and then I didn't lose anybody that I knew because of COVID. I have some friends that had some friends that they just fucking died quick, man. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy.
Definitely son. You alluded to something there I want to touch on. You talked about setting an example as a father and working hard and doing the right thing with your daughters. And a lot of people don't realize that, I think sometimes till later, and maybe either parent or some don't get it at all, that it's the example you set. It's what you do, not what you say, that children get off of you. That's what they image, they mirror as example, as father's important role with daughters. But also parenting and everything else. They mirror all that stuff, and a lot of parents, they go, "Hey, don't tell lies," and then they get caught telling lies. Don't swear, and then you swear. Your kids figure out if you're full of shit or not, and whether you're not a hypocrite, and then they mirror their lives based upon that. So I think it's great that you recognize that, and you're like, "Hey, be a good example to my daughters."
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm in my room, in my little office in my house, and you can see a poster that says grit, execution, mindset over there somewhere. Can't really got the mirror thing worked out. So they see the example all the time, and so far it seems to be working. They're great kids. So,
and to put a plug in here, I've lived for 35 years, and I've dated women of all ages and all types. And I'm at a point now where I'm starting to see the end game of women's lives. And I got to tell you, women that grow up with a father in the home who's sets an example as a good father, teaches them so much and completes them so much, and you can really see the fallout from not having a good father who set a good example. You can see the fallout from not having a father in the home. You can see the whole life's arc of it. Decisions they make, the men that they seek. I mean, I'm one of those people where, if it wasn't for the fact of bad parenting and bad fathers, I probably wouldn't get dates. So, that's just the thing. But it is true. I can be on a date and be like, you didn't have a father when you grew up, did you? No, didn't. Yeah, okay. And you can see the whole choices they made in their life. It's the same thing with sons and mothers. It's the same thing. I've seen what mother abandonment is like for a son, the choices that he makes, the women that he'll seek. You can see all of it. I'm like a fucking psychologist of 35 years of dating. Probably I should just go get a degree. So I want to put that out as an advertisement to the father out there. Hug your daughters. Spend time with your daughters. I had a lot of friends in the strip club business. Don't ask me how I got into that in Las Vegas. But I walked into a place. I thought it was a store. Anyway, I've had friends that own strip clubs, and they said, you know what, Chris, if it wasn't for bad parenting, we'd be out of business. So I always tell my father friends, hug your daughters, spend time with them, give them as much time as they need, be the dad, set a good example, because the father you are is the one that they go looking for. And if you're an awful father, you're bad, you're absentee, you don't hug enough, you don't spend enough time with them, guess what sort of guy they're going to go looking for? And then I get to see what their life's like at 55. So just an advertisement there. So let's get on more with your journey that you talked about in weight loss and getting svelte, as it were.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I got a fitness coach. I was lucky. I found him on TikTok. He lives 20 minutes away from me. He's been on 100 magazine covers and he's been in the business for a long time. I think he's a fitness coach Hall of Fame, if there's such a thing. He's name again is Clark Bartram. He's the godfather. Mike O'Hearn, weightlifter. Mike O'Hearn, Mike the Titan, his godfather to his kid. I mean,
Clark Bartram, did you say?
Yeah. Google him.
Okay, I'm doing that right now.
And so he Bartram, Bartram.
T-R-A-M. There we go. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Whoa. Holy shit. He's got like, is that a 10-pack or an 8-pack?
That's probably a 10-pack.
2, 3, 4, 5,
and he just
7,
turned 60.
8.
He just turned
60. I hate this guy already. Actually, I probably should talk to him. Yeah, this guy's killing it over there. Yeah, he's got an 8-pack. 8, maybe 8.5, 9. Holy crap.
Yeah, he's pretty inspirational. And he works with guys over, his niche is working with guys over 50. And just the results that I've seen over the last 3 years, developing the lifestyle of, I was up at 4:00 this morning and I had a choice to make. And that choice was, all right, I can go back and try to get another hour's worth of sleep, which is going to totally fuck my day up and make me feel shitty if I don't get this going. Or I can just start walking downstairs towards the coffee machine and then I can go hit the gym and get my day going. And that's what I did. So, it's so funny. Like after I used to hate going to the gym. I don't know how you feel about that. But at some point it's kind of like being sober, right? A switch flips. And then all of a sudden, like I love going. If I don't go for 2 or 3 days for whatever work or, lower back injury, whatever, I miss it. And I feel like shit. And I get myself back over there. Yeah. So really it's just been a consistent effort. You go to the gym today, you're not going to see the results really today. But if you stack them day after day, just like if you eat the Twinkie today, or you have that bag of chips or a half a pint of ice cream, you're not going to really see it today, but you will in the next few days. You just become something that is important. And as you start to get a beneficial result and the good feelings that go with it, you just tend to keep doing it. And that's what's worked for me for 3 years now.
I was at the gym at 4 a.m. this morning. In fact, I like to go in the middle of the night, early morning, because I'm one of the few people there, and like the gym is mine. And there's a narcissistic Machiavellian thing that I like, where I'm just like, Yeah, I own all this stuff. I can do whatever I want. You don't have too many chicks there running around that your heads turn around, and you don't have any other guys that are like out lifting you or anything. And you can get all your machines. You don't have to wait for anybody. That's the other thing. I hate waiting for people to get off my machines, or the weights are all. I got a nice gym, so. But yeah, sometimes I don't feel like going to the gym, and so what I do is I make a bargain with myself. I go, okay, you don't want to go work out. You kind of feel a little mucky and whatever. Maybe you're sore. So we're going to go to the gym, sit in the hot tub, or we're going to sit in the sauna and meditate a little bit, or we're going to sit in the massage chairs. And sometimes I just need to sit in the massage chair. Like last night, I my back was all mucking up because I hadn't been for a day or two. And so I went and sat in the massage chair, and then I felt like going. And so then I went and did all my little things, and then I sat in the massage chair after and felt better. Sometimes that recovery, you just need some recovery work is what you need. And then it's weird. I'll go there and I'm like, I'm not going to lift anything. I'm just going to sit on a bench and sit in the sauna and just, I don't know, feel pity for my broken ass body. And as soon as I get there, it's like the smell kicks in and your body just like, it's like riding a bike. Your body just kicks in and goes, I got to lift some weights. I got this. Yeah. It's just like, there's like a whole thing. You just kick in. And so I've kind of learned to do this Faustian bargain where I go, hey, we'll just go to the gym and sit there. And then as soon as I show up, I know that the gears are going to kick in. And so it's just the habit. Showing up is half the battle. I think Arnold Schwartz said that about the gym.
Yeah, for sure. There's somebody was saying that the heaviest weight you're going to lift is the door to the gym, the front door
to the gym. I love that, dude. I'm going to put that on my fucking wall and get a shirt, man. The heaviest weight you're going to lift is the gym door. Yeah, it's so interesting how my brain just kicks in. Like I'll feel it. I'll check in. I'll be like, oh man, like crawling, the first 10 feet in, and then all of a sudden, the hallway that goes to the locker room, it's like brain kicks into gear. So you worked out. You got the doughiness gone. You need to update your. LinkedIn, I got to tell you, because you got the George Clooney sort of gray hair look going on. The girls love that silver fox thing going on. You need to do that. You might want to keep your shirt on for that one, though.
Right. Yeah. I don't think my employer would appreciate it. Although you never know. Maybe we'll get a different kind of business.
Different kind of business. Get that gym business going on. So, which is interesting business. So, one thing we do want to get a plug in here for that you support prostate cancer awareness. You're on a nonprofit board, even though you've never had it. Tell us about how you got involved in that and why it's important to you.
Sure. So if you recall 10 minutes ago or so, you were looking at my fitness trainer, Clark Bartram.
Yeah.
And looking at him, I mean, he just turned 60. Most people would think if you were going to pick a dude with prostate cancer, it's not going to be him. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we decided to, he decided and asked me to be on this board. Hey, I'm going to put together this nonprofit to raise awareness. The way that he found out, he went in for his normal exam that, you get the finger and it was fine. But then he was checking his blood because in our fitness group, right, we do, check your blood like every quarter or at least every 6 months. His PSA, prostate specific antigen number, was high.
Wow.
And his doctor's like, hey, man, you should probably go get this checked out. That number shouldn't be where it's at. And long story short, sure enough, he got diagnosed. I think he's stage 2. And so what we're trying to do is raise awareness and get guys to go get checked. Yeah. In fact, the 501c3 corporation is called Check It Like a Man. It was, I think, originally going to be Bend Over and Check It Like a Man, but
it's probably a different story for Bend Over and Check It Like a Man. Give a good.
So if you go to checkitlikeaman.org, you'll see we're raising some funds.
That other company you can set up in West Hollywood, and I'm sure West Hollywood,
Southern California. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, there you go.
But one of the things that he came up with was a test. He didn't come up with. We partnered with a company that does a blood test. This is going to sound kind of like Theranos, if you remember the lady from Theranos, 1 drop of blood. They take 6 or 7 drops of blood in 2 different little cards. You send it in, and we check your PSA. And then obviously your cholesterol, high density, low density, lipoproteins, your triglycerides, total testosterone, free testosterone, your cortisol, your A1C. There's a bunch of things that they check, but specifically the most important thing to me is that they check your prostate. So a kid comes home, you stab your finger, you drip a couple drops of blood. Again, 6 to 12, just so we're clear. And then you send it out to this lab here in San Diego and they process it and they give you a read back. If you don't do that, do something. Go tell your doctor if you're over 50 for sure. You got to get a colonoscopy. If you pass it, you don't have to go back for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But you certainly don't want to ignore it. And you got to get your PSAs checked. If you don't, bad things can happen. Next month, November, I think is like the testicular cancer, prostate cancer, where it's Men's Health Awareness Month. You can grow a mustache, Movember they call it. We're just trying to raise awareness. CheckitLikeAman.org, or go to ClarkBartramSystems.com and you'll see the test, or ClarkBartram.com and you'll see the in-home test. Get yourself checked, please. Please. You owe it to your family. If you got kids, you owe it to your kids for sure. It's something you just got to do. So
CheckItLikeAman.com?
Org.
Oh, .org. CheckItLikeAman.org. Let me pull that up here.
And for some reason, you can't put in the www. That sends you right to an error page. I don't know, but do that, or go to, like I said, ClarkBartram.com, and you see a bunch of stuff about Clark, but you'll also see the at-home testing kit.
Okay.
So.
All right, there. Pretty cool, man. Yeah, this is important for guys our age.
Sure.
I think I'm getting checked for my testosterone levels here. You had heard we just had a young lady on the show. We were talking about this before this, Dr. Christine Boev, and I think her and a couple other people that we had on this last week or so have made me convinced that I'm going to go finally check it and see if maybe that can push me through some of the different issues I'm having with. I have to fast a long time, and I'm getting a lot of insulin resistance. And I was reading something, or we had somebody on the show that actually, if you're experiencing insulin resistance, it's really bad. It's a killer. No, we didn't have it on the show. There was a guy on Sam Harris's podcast that I've tuned into now that I'm listening to his podcast, and he wrote a great book. We're trying to get him on the show, and he talked about insulin resistance and stuff. So I don't have a plug, but if you want to know what the plug is, write me afterwards, and I'll go look it up. But so this is your whole journey. You've reinvented yourself multiple times. You've changed your life. You're constantly improving. You're setting an example as a father. God bless you. And your daughters will never date me. They'll see me coming. They'll be like, "No, that guy's got issues." All the way around, it's going, yeah, he's got some issues. But don't we all, though, kids? So there you go. Final thoughts as we go out. Do you want to pitch people to sign up more for the prostate stuff? Do you want people to reach out to you if they need help with landlord work and things in that issue on your lawyer side?
I would say that being in sales, right? I'm not a big fan of pitching, but I would certainly say, look, if you need some help, thank you. If you need some help making career changes, hit me up on the Insta, Ed Schwartz 87. I'm happy to do that. Talk you through what I went through, but really get your prostate specific antigen test done. Check that. Spend time with your kids if you haven't. And as far as career goes, ask yourself the question I asked myself, and that was, can I do this? Can I really do this job, whatever it is, whatever your career is, for the next 20, 30, 40 years? If the answer is no, get out now while you still can. You're never too old to make the changes. I guarantee you, if you asked Chris and myself 30 years ago what 55 was going to be like, we feel much younger than we actually are. And we're looking at another 30 years, at least, of life ahead of us. So you got to make the most of it. Get out there, make some big changes. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. And from your example, don't be afraid to make the big changes in life and do the big things, I mean, throughout my life, I've looked at this. Do I really want to be doing this when I get old? I mean, when we started our first multi-million-dollar company at 22, I looked at my business partner and I said, look, we have two choices. We can either climb the corporate ladder and hope that we do well and get one of those golden parachutes, and at 45, 50, we're trying to figure out how to start a company, or we can do this now and blood, sweat, and tears make it work, and hopefully it'll work. But we can afford to take the loss if we're 22. But I don't know. I looked at my business partner and I go, I don't know that I can do this at having a wife and kids at 50, 55, and I'm looking at my old man and seeing what he's feeling it. And fortunately, I'm doing much better than my old man was at 55. Knock on wood. I guess we lived different lives somehow, which is weird because I drank for 20 years and he didn't drink a dime, anything. But I maybe had a little more fun than he did. But we'll see. I mean, that's the big gig in the sky. I guess we'll see where he's at. But I know I'm much better off than he was. But this is the great journey of life, the reinvention of yourself. And a lot of your stories, people are scared to make these changes, and they're scared to say, hey, I want to make changes. In fact, I know of some guys that if they start going to the gym, their wives start freaking out. They're like, you're gonna leave me. And so it's sometimes hard. People try and, in relationships, people try and keep you in the box because it's safe, And once you start operating in the box, they're like, this is going to end. This is on the way out, whatever. So it's good. And then your advice for health, man. I tell everybody, don't do what I did. Don't eat all the shit. Don't gain all the pounds. Yeah, trying to fight back at 55 is so fucking hard. It is so hard. And yeah, I can do everything right every day and stuff, but it's still hard to drag back. Like, I can't go ever back to eating 3 meals a day. I just can't. Body's just like, fuck you. Okay, there's 10 pounds. Have fun with that, buddy. And that's not eating bad. That's just eating 3 meals a day and not intermittent fasting. My body just was like, maybe someday, maybe if I get on testosterone, maybe I can get back to where I could, maybe have breakfast in the morning, but not anymore. So please don't be like me, folks. Poster child right here. I know a bunch of ladies who have my picture on their wall, and then there's written over is, don't be like this guy. Don't date this guy. So,
you set the example by having them not be the example, right?
I do. Well, the beautiful thing is I teach people what bad guys are like, so the good guys like you, they go, oh crap, we should marry this guy because this guy is straight and he's not a fuck up like Chris Voss. So there you go. All right. There's got to be, somebody's got to be the dark triad, narcissistic, bad horse to make people appreciate what good men are like. Anyway, so thanks for coming to the show. We really appreciate it, Edwin. Final.com as we go out once again. I know we got our plug in there earlier, but let's just bookmark it properly in the show at the end.
Yeah, sure. Go to clarkbartram.com and you'll see the link for the PSA test kits. And then if you need to get a hold of me, you can DM me on Instagram at Ed Schwartz. That's EDSCHWARTZ 87. And LinkedIn is Edwin Schwartz. And you only got one life, Chris. Every second counts. Got to make the most of it.
It does. Be present, too. I think that's a big thing. So there you go. Thanks for coming on the show, Edwin. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. You guys got a lot of great stories and data out of this. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1 on the tickety-tockety. I've actually thought about having the opera singer that we hired last week do these plugs because I'm tired of doing them, but I don't think anyone's going to understand what the hell she's singing because it's kind of operatic. So we might figure out some way to do that. If someone comes up with an idea, write me. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys